This is our news, the weekend edition, and on the broadcast tonight, a teen boy becomes the country's latest homicide victim. Plus, the education minister hits out at the media. Find out why. And more good news for Long Island.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Knowles, and thanks for joining us. Police have one man in custody tonight in connection with the fatal stabbing of a teen boy. It's the latest information from police after the incident happened last night in Nassau Village. Police say it was shortly after 8 p.m. Friday when a group of men got into an altercation at Butler Street. That altercation ultimately turned deadly after a 16-year-old boy was stabbed about the body. Paramedics were called to the scene, however, was unsuccessful in reviving him and he was pronounced dead. Police now have a 20-year-old male of Christopher Street off Farrington Road in custody, assisting with this investigation. Police are also crediting members of the public, especially those of Nassau Village, for tips of information which led to the arrest. Meantime, they are encouraging young people to look for positive ways of settling arguments and disagreements without resorting to violence. And as officers were investigating that stabbing last night, there was a shooting incident which occurred a short while later in Yellow Elder Gardens. Police say a man was standing in front of his home at Old Cedar Street when he was approached by a man armed with a firearm. The man reportedly shot at him before running away. Paramedics took the victim to hospital where he is listed in serious condition. Well, as the Minister administration touts the reduction in crime as its biggest achievement thus far, one senior cabinet minister is slamming the media, claiming it's downplaying the significant accomplishment.
Isn't that absolutely incredible?
Despite a downward trend in murders and other serious crimes, Education Minister Jeff Lloyd says he is astonished that the media isn't giving it as much attention as compared to the more gripping headlines.
We, of course, have major stories. It's plastered across the headlines about, record murder. PLP in 2012 made that one of the central issues of its campaign, putting up major posters, billboards across the country, 492 murders in 5 years, a record, da-da-da-da-da. And yet we have in a quarter a 50% drop in murder, and it has barely a mention in the media.
National Security Minister Marvin Dames has touted that year-on-year to date efforts in the crime fight were producing positive results, highlighted by the fact that murders were on the decline by 45.2%, while other crimes, such as armed robberies and stolen vehicles, were also down.
Here it is, because of the efforts of the Royal Bahamas Police Force and a certain awareness developing in our own Bahamian society that, hey, listen, this social condition cannot continue, that it gets barely a mention in the media in terms of its prominence and so on.
It was, when I found it was below the fold, we call it in the paper, and the majority of it was on the inside of the paper.
Right.
Crime has been a major issue for successive governments, and with the Minister administration seemingly having some success early on in getting a grip on the matter, Lloyd believes it is the duty of the Fourth Estate to highlight and celebrate this significant accomplishment.
These are people who essentially influence the opinions of an electorate, a populace. These are the people who are responsible as, the media of record, the Guardian, the Tribune, and so on, to bring information of relevance and put it in particular context. Barely understood. I mean, isn't that cause for celebration? Giuliani in 1992 came to office in New York as the mayor of New York after David Dinkins and basically cleaned the place up. It's celebrated. It's a big time a cover story in Time magazine about the precipitous decline in small crimes as well as in significant crimes in New York City, because now New York is a place that can be safe to work and live again. Barely a mention in the Bahamas. Ah, Lord.
Well, for the record, and to put the minister's statements in the proper context, the media has repeatedly highlighted the falling crime rate. In other news, after being promised by successive governments, Long Island could finally be getting its international airport. The island's MP spoke with our Kyle Joaquin.
We expect, of course, no question about it. We have given a commitment to Long Island that there will be an airport, whether upgraded or brand new, either or, brought to Long Island, new and improved facilities.
Could an international airport finally be in the pipeline for Long Island? The island's MP, Adrian Gibson, assuring that it could become a reality during this government's term in office.
As you would know, I have been lobbying hard before and behind the scenes for that airport, and I am confident that we'll see that.
An international airport has been a campaign promise every election for candidates on the campaign trail. But MP after MP and term after term, the dream of that airport has yet to become a reality. Just this past Thursday, Gibson, who is also chairman of the Water and Sewage Corporation, led the signing of a $5.3 million contract for running water throughout the island.
We're going to improve Long Island entirely. We realized that having the airport as a gateway that would automatically stimulate the economy, new money coming in. You're talking about bed and breakfast, restaurants, etc. So we think that infrastructural improvements like the airport, like the water, like road works and so on, could lend to Long Islanders coming home, reinvesting in Long Island, persons from abroad doing the same, and new money in the economy. So the thrust is to get the infrastructural side going so that we could retain some of our people and really boost the economy.
Some parts of Long Island have become somewhat of a ghost town, with many who have called the place home relocating to New Providence or elsewhere in search of employment. Additionally, the island is still on the rebound from Hurricane Joaquin in 2015. We asked the Member of Parliament what he sees when he looks around the island.
Over the years, there's been some neglect. We have this thing in Long Island where we say the Bahamas stopped as far as Exuma. And we are trying to change that perception this time around by investing in Long Island and improving Long Island. So I know that, with these improvements, persons would come back. You would see these areas being repopulated. But I think the economic stagnation drove people to look for new jobs and employment and so on.
For years, Long Islanders have also longed for running water throughout the island. And with this week's contract signing, Gibson says he sees it as a step in the right direction. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Thanks a lot, Kyle. The Ministry of Works has responded to repeated calls for work to be done in Ragged Island. The Minister of Works said they are working, however, it won't happen overnight. Our Jillian Gray reports.
A team of 19 persons surveyed the island of Ragged Island this week. The team, which consists of engineers, Bahamas Power and Light personnel, and water and sewerage crews, will submit the findings of their inspections to the Ministry of Works.
We're moving ahead on schedule with Ragged Island. Again, a community that was built up over decades cannot be rebuilt in less than 1 year. And it cannot be rebuilt to the standards that we require in our country. If you went to Ragged Island before the hurricane, you would have seen the state of those buildings, and there's not surprise that they did not last through the hurricane. We are going to do things in a proper way so that they will be stronger than they were in the past.
Works Minister Desmond Bannister said proper building codes must be followed as they press ahead to rebuild that island, which was ravaged by Hurricane Irma last year.
But if any of you built a house, you see the process you have to go through, you see how it takes, you see the standards that we have in the Bahamas. Those standards were not being applied in those family islands. Ministry of Work doesn't inspect buildings there. You had local government inspecting them. You had people just throwing up houses without inspections. You had no BPL inspections. We had all of these things going on in our country. They have to stop. We have to be subject to law and order. We have to be the same kind of rules that apply to the construction of this building are going to have to apply to buildings in Ragged Island, so that if a hurricane does hit, the people there are going to be safe. That is absolutely critical. That's what we're going to do.
Hurricane Irma tore through homes, government buildings, and schools, most of which are still in a state of disrepair. The Ragged Island Association, who sent a petition for help to the government, says the need for water and medical personnel is top priority for those residents.
Water and Sewage is working assiduously to do the best they can so that they can put a water system in Ragged Island that will last the people of Ragged Island for many, many years to come.
MP for that island, Chester Cooper, continues to hammer the government to bring relief to those residents. Bannister insists that help is on the way, but he says it will take some time.
Another hurricane hits Ragged Island at this very moment, then obviously nobody should be there. We should be in a safer place until such time as the community can be rebuilt. And it just can't be rebuilt overnight.
The government has promised that Ragged Island will be turned into a green city. Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
And we will take our first break here, but still ahead tonight, the Youth, Sports and Culture Minister reflects on year one in his ministry and areas for improvement. And later on, she's back and with a show you won't want to miss. Those stories and more coming up when our news returns.